I did just pass around, I labeled it case manager cheat sheet, but it really is for any provider that is wanting to get information or wanting to come visit their clients, and how important it is that case managers and housing providers, anyone who's really part of that client's treatment team, how important it is that you do come to visit them at the jail. Again, similar, we're just seeing them for the first time, and we may see them, the mental health unit may see them for 5 minutes or an hour. You just don't know. So to get some of that collateral information on how the client usually presents is going to be very important for how our mental health unit works with that client. So we'll just kind of go over this cheat sheet here. I know when I was case managing, it was a little bit intimidating and sometimes frustrating to reach out to the jails or to find out after the fact that your client was in jail and then released and you never knew that the client was there. Unfortunately, the mental health unit consists of 4 full-time people and 1 part-time person, and they are triaging 300 to 400 referrals in a month. So, and we have about anywhere from 450 to 500 inmates at a time. I am not part of the mental health unit. I'm separate from them. I work hand in hand closely with them, but my role is completely different. My role I'll talk about briefly later as being the Rule 20 coordinator. I just want to make sure everybody has the information on how to reach out to the mental health unit, find out how they're doing, provide that collateral information. Most importantly, if they are under commitment and have a Jarvis order, we need a med list sent, we need the commitment paperwork, the Jarvis orders. Right now, I'm the only one at the jail that can kind of pull from both criminal and civil side, which is unfortunate, but so not having that information can really impact the how your client's doing in jail. I mean, if they're not receiving their medications because we don't know that they need to, you can imagine how that's going to end up. A lot of folks in solitaire because of that reason. So to determine if your client is in custody, you can look at the daily booking sheets. There's an inmate in custody booking reports that is put out every day. Have any of you used that before? Okay, so it's pretty simple. You can just Google it actually, and it comes up, and you can look at Ramsey County and many other counties as well. Ramsey County does have the automated phone system too, so that's very useful and helpful if you can't find your client. If you've looked at regions, you've looked at some of the other hospitals, checking with that daily current inmate information can be helpful. You can search the other website, the Vine link, that's listed here for you too. Occasionally that website is not accurate, so I always would encourage you guys either to use the phone or just to actually check Ramsey County. Looking up court information, this is a big one that I hear frustrations on both sides from case managers and from the mental health unit. Case managers oftentimes, when they do get in touch with a mental health unit worker, want to know their case information. A, we probably don't have a release of information to talk to you and tell you that information, and B, it's on the court records website, so we would encourage you as the case manager to just reach out and use that website. You can find any of the case information there. Visiting your client at the ADC, super important. Again, we don't see them very often. Psych providers are there Tuesday and Thursday for 3 hours only. You can imagine what that's like with 450 plus inmates and 300 to 400 referrals for mental health. So any kind of information we can get from you folks on the baseline, especially housing. If somebody's living with you and you're managing their medications and you have all of the diagnostic information that would be important for both our psych provider but also our mental health unit to know, it'll be really important to have all of that information as soon as possible. Coming to visit your client, how many of you have been to the jail to see your clients? Okay. kind of intimidating. It's a little scary, and that voice of reason that comes over the intercom every once in a while is a little bit scary, but you get used to it. And I can't emphasize how important it is, because you guys know your clients best. Sometimes the clients are going to give us misinformation, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not on purpose. Sometimes they don't want us to know they have a case manager. Again, I have a little bit different access in my role, so I always know if they have a case manager, if one is open. But again, we just need you to come visit your clients. Facilities lock down daily from 10:30 to 12, 2:30 to 3:30, and 4 to 6. But any other times you can come visit your clients. You'll be locked in a secure room. The COs will tell you which side of the table to sit on. Usually there's a little monitor back here. If there's an issue, you just push the button and the CO will come let you out. Don't panic if your client leaves and then you're stuck in there. Sometimes it does happen that you'll be stuck in there. I've heard people for 45 minutes just keep pushing the button. They're usually dealing. Yes, it gets a little. The worst is when you're stuck in. You're not even in the room. You're in between the two doors, and you're just stuck there. So just be patient. There's one person. I did not know that. There's one person monitoring all of those to open each and every door in the jail. So he or she might be looking at a different camera at that point. Let's see what else is important. For records, so if you guys are wanting to request records, we cannot give you any records from the corrections officers on the jail side. The only records we can share with you would be the behavioral health notes that are in there from our mental health unit. So those would be the only records you're getting from the jail. You definitely, obviously, have to make sure you have a release of information. Again, that's going to be important for you to come see your client to get that. The mental health unit is not equipped. They don't have the time to go get releases signed for you. You can imagine when you guys go through to see your clients how difficult it is to get in and out. Imagine doing that just over and over all day long to go see different clients on different units. You know, there's many different pods. So we spend a lot of time, just like you guys do, waiting for that door to open or for the client to be brought to us. So they just don't have the time to be doing ROIs for you. Requests will need the release of information, and they would go directly to our supervisor, Krista Delgado. And I did put in the mental health group, the unit itself. They have one main email address and then a phone number that rings at everyone's desk. So you might get Bridget, you might get Brian. It just depends on who's there that day at that time. But they're there to assist you. They're there to get any information that you can give them. Please understand they can't give you any information, just like the hospital, if they don't have a release. And they will just encourage you to come see your client. And just make sure that before you come to the ADC that you follow those steps on how to get set up, get your background check done, all of those things. And civil commitment. The team does not have capacity to check the case management status, and they don't have, they just don't have access to the system. Again, I have that access, but the mental health unit does not. So if your client is not a Rule 20 client, they likely will not know that they have case management. Moving on to Rule 20 clients, that's where I step in. So the pilot program that I am part of is the Rule 20 care coordination. So I'm literally getting sent every Rule 20 every day that has just had an order from the previous day. I take that list every day, plug it into a spreadsheet. I then look at every single one of those clients and look in about 7 different systems to see if they have MA, to see if they have case management, see if they're on commitment, see if they have a Jarvis order, all of the things. I have to look all of those things up. Takes a lot of time, but so please know when I call you, case managers, that I'm gonna reach out, I'm gonna leave you a voicemail, or if I have your email address, I'll shoot you an email, but that's typically, then the ball's in your court, you need to reach out to me. If clients have case management, my role is pretty limited, because the goal of this pilot program is to set up Rule 20 clients with services in the community that don't have case management services in place already, and they don't have other services in place. Right now, I have been coordinating with a lot of case managers on placements and getting referrals done and things like that. I foresee that being less and less likely as we go forward, because right now, I started in end of August and I have about 200 Rule 20 clients. So, I think it's gonna have to be put back on the case manager, as it should for referrals, right? We all wanna make sure that we're part of that referral process. You guys know your clients the best. And I know sometimes that you guys have just received the client because they're just put under commitment and they wind up in jail. So we get that, I understand that. I'm always there to answer questions and help. So if there's any questions you do have, shoot me an email. I put my email in here. I can always help you with options for community placements and those kinds of things. The other thing that I'll say that's super important as a case manager is if your client, you know your client's in jail, I've reached out to you, told you your client's in jail, you've come to visit that client, if you could make sure that you're following up, I will send an email if you respond back to me with the public defender's information, and then it's up to the case manager to reach out to that public defender to work on an appropriate conditional release plan. And the more that case managers can do that, the better off all of these clients are. These clients are suffering with their mental health. They don't need to be sitting in a jail cell. Right now, their return dates, once they see that judge the first time, a return date for court for a eval, Rule 20 eval, is 60 to 90 days. And your client could be just sitting there decompensating more and more. Again, ending up in SEG or getting more charges filed for bad behavior in the jail. So the more you guys can coordinate on the outside with the public defender. If you're not getting a response from the public defender, let me know, because I will reach out for you as well. Yeah.
I noticed that someone, not so much with the jail, but the hospital, the social worker from the hospital, usually we're a provider, and we would get the call from, or email from the social worker. And I found it kind of surprising that the only time that the case manager might get involved is after everything has been pretty much decided that we as a provider are gonna accept this person, and then they get involved for rape prop. But is that the way it should be set up? Yeah. Okay.
No, a case manager should always be involved with whether there's a corporate foster care or a housing provider in place. Case management should always be involved with that release plan from hospitals or from, I mean, especially on your end, they have that provisional discharge that they're gonna have to sign. So case management should always be involved in that. And I would encourage you, if they're not reaching out to you, reach out to them.
Well, I know that we'll CC them in the emails and those kinds of things, but yeah, I didn't know if that system had changed or it's just maybe workload.
Well, case managers are like all of us. I'm sure, their caseloads are above the max too. So I would encourage some understanding and some patience, but definite communication between all parties, the jail, the hospital, case managers, and housing will be important. Right. And one of two things is going to happen with that client. Either they're going to be stuck there for 90 days or 60 days, which they don't need to be, or the worst case is they're just going to be released to the streets, and you guys aren't going to have any part of it and not know where they're at. And this is kind of your opportunity to re-engage with the client and try to build that rapport as a case manager or housing provider if you've lost contact with them. So use it to your advantage to come in and see them and and rebuild that engagement.
And as a supervisor, if our case managers aren't involved, I actually wanna know that.
Yes, and one thing I will say on my end that has been challenging and frustrating is, I won't name names, but there are some case management agencies that I don't know the reasoning. I can only assume it's abuse by the client, or clients, but they won't give us direct phone numbers or access to case managers. So then it makes my job difficult when I'm trying to reach them and I have to call the main line, and they may direct me to the voicemail of this case manager, and this just happened. I've only been here 2.5 months doing this, and it's already happened twice where I've left a voicemail and never hear back from the case manager, but then find out later that they don't even work there anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and there's a lot of turnover in case management, so, yeah.
So I got a client right now, he was supposed to be at the Ramsey County Adult Detention Center. I went there last Friday and they told me he got transferred to Wright County, which I followed with Wright County and they said, oh yeah, this individual's here. And then I give the date of birth and they're like, no, that's not the right person. So I reached out to Krista. I'm like, hey Krista, you know, I reached out to Wright County and they said that the individual is probably still in their custody, and she was like, well, I think he is here, but the date of birth doesn't match either. I'm like, okay, well, where did he go? You know, I mean, it's just like, it's just confusing. So I don't know.
I will tell you that when I search every morning my new list, I don't know what ethnic background your client is, but
Right.
a lot of times if they're they've come here as a refugee, they all have, or a lot of them have the same date,
Right.
birth date, and so it does get confusing because sometimes their names are even
Yeah, the same.
the same. So I totally feel
Yeah,
for what,
kind of.
well, and that is what happens oftentimes is we have, and I don't know the reasoning. I know it has to do with beds. Ramsey County partners with a couple other
Right,
counties,
right.
and folks that are well behaved in our ADC are at the top of the list to move somewhere else, to just open up a bed for somebody
Right.
that's coming
what
in.
they say,
So it's probably something like that,
Right.
which means it doesn't help you right now, but he'll be
No.
back.
Right.
He'll be back to Ramsey County at some point. If they're being boarded somewhere else, that's not gonna show up on
So maybe
that
it
site.
wouldn't
They
be
might have them
accurate
listed,
on
yeah.
their location, but would it at least say that they were in the system somewhere?
It should, yes, but again, they also don't update their release dates as often. So sometimes you might run into that where they've already been released. If they have multiple warrants, what happens is once they have met with the judge here, if we know they have other warrants out there, they can conditionally release them to the other counties. So what my typical day looks like with a client is I will figure out all of the services they have. I'll connect with you, let you know that I'm gonna be meeting with this client. And then from there, I will reach out to housing providers if they're open with housing. That's a little bit trickier to find. I have to start with the CADI case manager or the DD waiver worker or whatever waiver services they're under. So I'll reach out to them, but I always have a release of information signed. If they won't sign a release of information to even work with me, my job's done with that client, unfortunately. I'll try again, maybe once they've been on meds and they're a little bit more stable and can make a better decision with more information. But so I will reach out to all case managers, all CADI workers, waiver workers, and if I know the housing providers, I'll reach out to them. And as far as for me with clients who aren't being case managed, I'll start working with these folks. They'll sign the initial intake information with me. I will prepare what's called a bridge plan with each client, and that bridge plan is something that we develop together on where they could go. So sometimes they have their own apartment, that's great. Sometimes they don't, then we have to look at IRTS facilities or board and lodges or something like that. Once I know what they're willing to agree to, we can develop that bridge plan. I present that to the judges and all attorneys. And then the hope is that we can get that client out before civil commitment ever needs to happen. And also before the Rule 20 return date, which I know can be tricky because as a case manager, you always fear that your client is never gonna show up for that Rule 20 evaluation if they're out in the community. So again, case management's gonna be very important in that part. So I will set them up with targeted case management, IRTs or board and lodge, or if they happen to come in on a caddy waiver, it hasn't been going so well so far, because as soon as the caddy worker hears where I'm from, they close immediately. So, I have not been successful in getting someone back out into their, oh, I take that back. One time I did get somebody back out into their original placement, because the waiver stayed open.
Why if they don't contact?
It's statute that needs to be changed, but it's not yet, and it's above our pay grade. But any waivers, once they're incarcerated, they will close the waiver.
Oh, they don't even give 30 days? Yeah.
No, not in jail. In hospital, it's 60 days now, right?
It's 120.
120 in the hospital, but for jail, they shut it off immediately. Unless you get a really nice waiver worker and they just don't.
Just ignore it.
Yes,
and
they
kinda
just
put it on
pretend
the
like they
side.
don't know. That happened once so far. So that's kind of what it looks like for me. And so if you all, whenever we're talking, we can share resources, because it's always, I mean, I have lists and lists of IRTSs and out of county. I like to place out of county when my folks are coming out of jail.
I do too.
Yes, I think it's just good practice, but if they're willing.
My favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do.
Yes.
Outside of their area.
But I think sharing the resources will be key, because I can learn from you guys, you can learn from me, we all learn from each other.
This video is brought to you by Ramsey County Social Services and was made possible by a Mental Health Innovations grant. Thank you.